Ooh, welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And in this little episode, I'm going to be doing a little collection update. I've got a bunch of stuff from Shout Factory, Scream Factory, Arrow, Vestron, Mill Creek, and a DVD pick for y'all. So let me get into it here. We'll start with a Shout Factory Select release. Nothing But Trouble from 1990, I believe, 91. Written by and starring Dan Aykroyd. Story by he and his brother Peter. And yeah, this is one of those movies that I never thought when I first saw it on VHS that it would get to be the sort of cult movie that it is. Like, I think a lot of people saw it on cable. They saw it on VHS because of the cast, SNL fans and what have you. And I just never thought people would remember it so fondly because it is a strange movie. The basic idea is that you have Chevy Chase as sort of this rich, well-to-do guy who ends up with his lady played by Demi Moore and Taylor Negron and his gal. They end up in the middle of nowhere and they get a failure to stop. They get pulled over, or at least the cops are coming after them. And then they kind of make it worse, and they end up getting hauled into this, because they're in this little town that kind of has its own rules and laws. They're hauled into the main judge. I mean, he's the judge. He's like all kinds of stuff for this town of, I think Vulcanvania maybe is the name. I don't know. It feels like something out of another country, but it's in the on the East Coast. It feels, I forget if they're in New York or where, but so they end up in this house where he has his courtroom, and Dan Aykroyd plays the judge character in full makeup. He also plays a giant baby kind of character, and John Candy plays dual roles, and it is truly unique. There's really nothing like it. As you can see, this house that the judge lives in is on this junkyard land, and it is totally bizarre. There have definitely been executions that he's mandated, hence a lot of these bones and stuff. So it's a scary, backwoodsy kind of you're in trouble and can you get away kind of scenario. But it's also just a strange comedy and seems like something that could really only come from the mind of Dan Aykroyd, because it's just so strange. It could only get made with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy and Demi Moore involved. And it's, like I said, truly unique, strange. Most people would say maybe not a great movie, but I know I'm not the only one who is excited to get this on Blu-ray, and I love that it got the nice treatment that it got on Blu-ray. It's got it doesn't mention the scan on here. I could have sworn maybe it did, but the scan looks pretty good, and yeah, there's some interviews. They got interview with Dan Aykroyd, interview with Chevy Chase. Aykroyd talks about the production. He talks about, the movie opening against Silence of the Lambs and Sleeping with the Enemy, and how I guess Desert Shield was starting that weekend as well. And so there were some extenuating circumstances outside of the fact that this movie is just weird and maybe wouldn't have connected with any audience at any time. I mean, on a huge commercial successful level, let's say. Maybe not. But I just love that we're still talking about it now. I love that it got this Blu-ray. It also has new interviews with the actress Bertilla Damas, production designer William Sandell, costume designer Deborah DeDulman Landis, and music producer Christopher Brooks. It's got a new audio commentary with pop culture historian Russell Dyball, who also did the commentary for Dragnet. So he's got a little Dan Aykroyd thing going on. And so, yeah, a nice release. And this is shot by Dean Cundy, by the way. That is fascinating to me. So it looks good. I forgot about that completely. Anyway, so a cult favorite finally on Blu-ray. Had to snag it. I know I'm not the only one. And then I've got a couple Scream Factory releases. This one I just got, so I haven't had a chance to dig into yet, but I'm definitely a fan of Killer Party. And this one is from 1986, and it says it's April Fool's Day, and the Sisters of Sigma Alpha Pi believe they found the perfect place to throw a party, the abandoned fraternity house where a guillotined pledge once lost his head in a hazing gone awry. But shortly after their revelry begins, the student body count starts to rise as the vengeful pledge returns from the grave and makes it a party to die for. Featuring appearances by Paul Bartel, love Paul Bartel, Martin Hewitt, and the debut of Joanna Johnson. The Killer Party was written by Barney Cohen, who I guess wrote Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and directed by William Fruitt, House by the Lake, Spasms, Funeral Home. He's a really interesting director. I forgot he directed this. And yeah, it's just sort of goofy 80s slasher fun. Opens with one of the most enjoyable music videos to open a movie ever. And yeah, that really sets the tone for something interesting. This one has features by Justin Beam and his company, which is always quality stuff, so I know this is going to be good. We have new interviews with actors Ralph Seymour and Sherry Willis Birch, writer Barney Cohen, composer John Beal, and more. So, again, with Justin Beam on the extras, I know we're in good shape. Next up, we have another Scream Factory. We have Deadly Friend, directed by the late, great Wes Craven, and starring Kristy Swanson. As you can see here, I love this description on the back. Somebody, Joe Bob Briggs, a Breakfast Club version of Bride of Frankenstein. Very intriguing take on this film and not totally inaccurate. So that's the slip, and here's the original artwork, which is fine. I may flip it, but I've never loved that artwork particularly. But so this one, just sort of an 80s goofy gem of a movie, and just kind of doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense, doesn't really have much of a basis in any kind of science that makes you believe any of it, but nonetheless, still enjoyable. From director Wes Craven comes a terrifying tale of technology gone awry. Lonely teenage genius Paul Matthew Laborito, who I always remember from Little House on the Prairie, a specialist in brain research, has two best friends. His remarkable robot. You gotta love 80s movies with robots. I mean, that's something I kind of miss. They were inevitably a little bit dumb, but they were still always kind of fun. And the beautiful girl next door, that's Kristy Swanson. When tragedy strikes both of his friends, he desperately tries to save them both by pushing technology beyond its known limits into a terrifying new realm. Like a modern-day Dr. Frankenstein, Paul discovers too late that he has created a rampaging monster. Deadly Friends is a witty ghoul story, deliberately teeters on the edge of spoof. The New York Times. And so it's, I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but he basically, uses some robot parts to try and revive Kristy Swanson after she has a bad accident, and then she becomes kind of a zombie robot, kind of a Bride of Frankenstein. Gosh, it's a weird movie, folks. I got to tell you. Just very strange. But, I still enjoy it. I think it's just one of those things where it's like only in the 80s. I don't think this movie could get made again right now. It just doesn't seem possible to me. So we've got a nice new 2K scan from the Inner Positive for this. New interviews with actress Kristy Swanson, writer Bruce Joel Rubin, composer Charles Bernstein, and special makeup effects artist Lance Henderson. All very good interviews and all help me understand this movie just a little bit more, which is cool. With a movie like this where you're kind of like, huh? What? Not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, some will say in a bad way, but for me, I'm just more curious about it. I'm just more curious. How does this happen? What's the creative process behind it? Whatever insights I can get into Wes Craven and his dealings with it. You can get some of that through those interviews, because obviously we can't hear his words about it anymore. But nice to see yet another Wes Craven on Blu-ray in Deadly Friend. Then we have another horror icon in Dario Argento with a 4K of Profondo Rosso, aka Deep Red. I went for the limited edition alternate cover because I don't particularly love that doll cover that you get most of the time for this movie. And it's another banger. It's another great, I mean, obviously you see this is a really thick, sturdy box that we get from Arrow that I love so much for their limited editions. And so you got your 4K. Do I have the alternate? Yeah, so that's that other artwork that I don't particularly love. And it's, of course, comes with, now in this case, you have multiple versions. So as you can see, you have the new 4K restoration of both the 127-minute Italian version and the 105-minute export version from the original negative by Arrow, 4K UHD Blu-ray presentations of both. And so then you have like disc 1, restored original lossless mono audio. Sorry, that's the original version on disc 1. And then on disc 2, you get the export version, the shorter version. So if you watch on disc 1, you want to watch it dubbed. It's only, I've always, this is a thing I found with other versions of this film. They don't have the English soundtrack, or they didn't dub certain scenes because they never, I guess, exported that version of the movie. So the movie, if you watch it dubbed, will go in and out of Italian and English for those scenes, those sometimes extended bits of scenes or whole scenes that don't exist in that exported version, as I understand it. And so it is a little distracting. If you're an all-in Italian, watching with subtitles kind of person, then you probably just want to do that, because if you try to watch it dubbed, I found it pretty distracting when it goes in and out, especially in the same scene. So, but anyway, it looks great as usual. Arrow kills it with their transfers. The colors pop, the detail is incredible, and like I said, you've got 2 versions and a ton of extras, almost 3 hours of new interviews with members of the cast and crew, including Argento. So just a wonderful set, one of his best movies, along with Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Suspiria and stuff. Get your nice poster, you get your really nice bound matte finish book for Deep Red, and essays and pictures. Just a really nicely put together book, as they always do. Arrow really, I just talk about them a lot, folks, and I know a lot of people like them too. They find them a little bit expensive, and I get that, but I save up for these because this is the stuff where I'm like, it's worth the money to me to support a label like this that's doing incredible work than maybe some other label that is just sort of not really putting the effort in on this level. And unfortunately, to put something out, a release like this, costs money. And so, if you want to continue to get this stuff, you got to vote with your wallet and get as many Arrows as you can. I know it's not easy to get everything, and I can't get everything, but I had to get the Argento. I'm keeping the Argento collection going. Next up, we have the 4K Ultra HD of Scream, another Wes Craven, of course. And this one looks really good as well. And I think it ports over a lot of the old extras. I don't know. Oh, there is a new extra on here. Yeah, okay. Now I remember. So you get your old commentary from Wes and Kevin Williamson, very good. You get a sort of production featurette, and then you get a Blood Legacy Scream 25 years later, which is cool because it has interviews with Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell and a few others involved with the movie, but it also has basically the entire cast of the new Scream movie, which I think is coming out in early 2022. And I'll be honest, the new cast doesn't really have a lot to say that I think is particularly interesting. And also, it becomes kind of a big plug for the new movie, which, hey, I get it. You own the rights to this great seminal film, this horror film that has been so influential and so is a favorite in terms of reinventing and doing a meta take on slasher movies. And it's as good as it ever was. I still think it's fantastic. And the commentary is so great to hear again. But yeah, this new interview thing, it's only about 7 or 8 minutes. And I just felt like they just kept plugging the new movie by each cast member. They would say, Scream 2022. And they talked to like every single cast member, most of whom I don't know. So I'm kind of like, okay, sure, whatever. You like the movie, I get it. But anyway, looks great. You got to get it if you're a fan. It is just beautiful. And I'm so glad that they put it out. You know, maybe we'll get to see some of the sequels in 4K as well. I don't know. But this one definitely worth a pickup from Paramount Home Entertainment. And does this include... No. This is just the 4K, I think. Right? Or is it the 4K and the Blu-ray? No, I think it's just the 4K and the digital. So you don't get a Blu-ray with this, so keep that in mind when you pick it up. You're only getting the 4K and a digital code and no Blu-ray. But like I said, looks great and you got to have it. Next up, we have the new one from Vestron. I just got this in yesterday as well. And it is Steel Dawn, starring Patrick Swayze, which, if I recall, is kind of like a post-apocalyptic... Let's see. Whoever controls the water controls the valley. That sounds familiar. Sounds like Waterworld. Proclaims the evil Damnil in this cult favorite starring Patrick Swayze as nomad and ex-soldier roaming the desert wastes of the war-ravaged world. When his mentor is killed before he can take the job of peacemaker in the town of Meriden, Nomad lends the townspeople his fighting skills, instead gaining the trust of war widow Kasha and her son Jux. But after Damnil learns of a secret water supply flowing under Kasha's farm, his thirst truly turns truly murderous in this dystopian 80s gem, featuring Anthony Zerbe and Brian James, who I love both of. And this is your usual, pretty well done, in terms of extras anyway, Vestron release. You have an audio commentary with director Lance Hoole, interviews with the screenwriter, interview with the DP, interview with production designer and costume designer, and an archival featurette on the movie, as well as a digital copy. So, I don't know. I'm just at a completionist point for this now. I don't really have all of them. There's a couple that I left out, but I have most of the Vestrons. So if it's even halfway interesting, I'm probably going to get it, especially because they have been pricing them pretty reasonably. And this was around $12 or something. So Steel Dawn. And next up, a few from Mill Creek. We have Renegades, starring Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips. And this is one that I definitely seen as a young person on VHS. I was into Lou Diamond Phillips movies. I think around the time the first Power came out, and Kiefer Sutherland was everywhere. So I dug that. But I forgot that Jack Shoulder directed this movie. Jack Shoulder, of course, did some great films like The Hidden. He did a movie I love called 1201. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and others. And he's just a really stylish director who knows how to put a film together. And this one is sort of a buddy action movie where you have a kind of down and out cop played by Kiefer who gets involved. He's sort of trying to do a bust on the side, and he's looking into trying to figure out where this sort of criminal is dealing with maybe a corrupt cop. And so he's trying to find his way to where that cop is and who it is. And through happenstance, the bad guys that he gets involved with end up stealing this ceremonial Native American lance. It's like a spearhead, basically, that's on display at this museum. And Lou Diamond Phillips is one of the Native American folks in the film, and he makes it his mission to get the lance back. So they have to work together to try and get this criminal and, figure out who he's entangled with the cops, which makes things more complicated in terms of getting cop support to help them. So just enjoyable and better than I remembered. And, comes with a nice slipcase and has the alternate artwork, which is fun. But I just dug that Jack Shoulder directed this, and I enjoyed it upon rewatch. It just reminded me of, whenever this came out, 1989, so it's a late 80s movie. But yeah, so this is from Mill Creek in their retro package line. And if you're into that, by the way, why not check out The Cowboy Way, which I think I've mentioned on the channel before, which also has Kiefer Sutherland and is kind of more of a buddy comedy, more of a fish out of water. Cowboys go to New York. Anyway, that's fun too. And then another one from Mill Creek is Casual Sex, ? With Leah Thompson and Victoria Jackson from SNL. And this one is pretty cool in that I don't remember a lot about it. I didn't remember that it opens with Buster Poindexter's song Hot, 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 and that song comes into the film again. And it also opens in sort of a New York experimental theater kind of way with like a black box room with Leah Thompson and Victoria Jackson addressing camera. And it is sort of them narrating the whole movie, them talking about their relationships, their sex lives, where they're at this point in 1980. This one is from 88. So you're dealing with the AIDS epidemic in terms of, people that are, having sex on the regular, sometimes, as the film implies, casual sex. And then it becomes a thing where they go to sort of a getaway that's meant to be sort of a thing where you're going to hook up with other people. And it's kind of that weird satirical new agey kind of setup. Who says sex in the 80s isn't a laughing matter? Certainly not the Ready for Anything Stacy or her somewhat repressed friend Melissa. They're two very contemporary women reluctantly confronting today's changing social and sexual attitudes, determined to develop a deep and meaningful relationship with a man, and not afraid to make commitments. Stacy and Melissa take a vacation to a plush health resort where they hope romance will bloom. Unfortunately, they are continually confronted by men who wilt at the thought of anything other than casual sex. And the cast includes Jerry Levine, who plays Styles in Teen Wolf. It also has Andrew Dice Clay as some of these dudes that they're dealing with. And it has songs by Buster Poindexter, Dan Harmon, and Gladys Knight. And it's fun. I just didn't remember that opening. I didn't remember a lot of it, but I was surprised that I enjoyed it. And last but not least, certainly, this is fantastic. And I have known the film since it first came out on DVD in, I want to say, circa 2000. This is a reissue of the DVD, now in a different kind of case, but it's still great. So this documentary is just truly amazing. I guess it's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite documentaries, so much so that he even struck a film print of it. It was originally shot on video, but he struck a film print which has recently or will be playing at the New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles. But just so you understand what the documentary is, it is about a community in Longview, Texas, where they have a Nissan dealership that yearly does a very special contest where they have a group of people. They draw 24 names, and they challenge these people to keep their hand on the truck for as long as they can. And the last person standing wins the truck. And the idea is that you have to have your hand on the truck at all times. They give them gloves so they don't mess up the paint on the truck. And you have to have your hand on the truck at all times, except every hour you get a 5-minute break, and you can take your hand off the truck then. And every 6 hours you get a 15-minute break. And you can just go down, sit, rest, get a snack. And so you just have this incredible parade of characters. You know, this woman is very religious, and she's been praying for the truck. This woman is trying to quit her waitressing job and figures she can sell the truck and get out of Longview. This guy, Benny, is the dude who won the truck. That's him right there. He won the truck 2 years ago. And so he's got all these philosophies and strategies, and you get like those little side interviews with each person talking about why they're doing the contest, what their strategy will be, and so forth. And it is a fascinating human drama. It is hilarious and heartbreaking and just so compelling to watch to the very end. And even when I've seen the movie, it had been a long time, I don't remember who wins the truck at the end. And so it's just completely edge of your seat, like, oh my gosh, who's going to be the next to drop off? And it's just one of those movies that is in league with documentaries like American Movie, Vernon, Florida, stuff like that. Heavy Metal Parking Lot. We're just getting this slice of Americana that is, nakedly itself. It is just, each of these people is, not, I don't feel like, maybe Benny's playing things up a little bit, but they are kind of who they are, and they are just all so entertaining and engaging to watch. And I just cannot recommend this documentary enough. It's so good. And this DVD includes over an hour of never-before-seen interviews from the original production, and it's originally digitally remastered from the High 8 analog tapes. It was shot on High 8. But yeah, so quotable. Side characters, all the side characters are funny. Like, there's one guy who's just there supporting his wife. He's got a homemade cardboard hat, and he just goes on this little tangent about air conditioning and how he had turned off the air conditioning for her because he wanted her to get used to the heat, as it's particularly hot during this time they do this contest. And he just goes on this little, not rant, but this little, thing about his air conditioning unit that he got. It's a 20-ton air unit that apparently he got for an incredible price, and it's enough to cool a Walmart, so he can bring the temperature of his place down to like below zero or something. It can just freeze them out. It's such a powerful air unit. But just little stories like that make this movie, so worthwhile. But yeah, truly one of the great documentaries of the last, 30 years, and one that I don't think that many people know about. So I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but I definitely recommend picking up this DVD, which I just got from Amazon straight up. If you're looking for one that you will be quoting for years to come, Hands on a Hard Body is definitely your jam. So that is it for this episode. Please check out some of these discs. Let me know if you've picked any of them up, and have a wonderful and Blu-ray filled week, and I'll talk to you soon.